Hello, this is Blue Noser Hoser with the Sunavalon deck profile for the February 2022 format. This deck is fun to play, easy to pick up, and decently budget, and it's a lot more powerful than people give it credit for. So without further ado, getting into the profile, starting out with the starter cards, you have the man himself, Sunseed Genius Loci. The deck does very little without him, so you max out on as many ways as possible to actually get to him. The Link 1 doesn't trigger its effect unless he was made with him in the extra deck monster zone. So it's very important to see specifically Genius Loci. So with that in mind, you run 3 Lone Fire Blossom, 3 Unexpected Die, 3 Painful Decision, and a 1-for-1, just as many ways as possible to get to him. Lone Fire Blossom being specifically good because it can summon any plant and it can tribute any plant on the field to summon a plant from deck. So you can clear extra deck monster zone without actually having to link away anything or do anything weird to clear it by other means. 1-for-1 is also very good because there's a number of other level 1 plants in the deck that it can summon. Then you have Sunvine Sowing and Sunvine Shrine. Both of these are searchable off of the Link 1, and they both do various things. Sunvine Sowing can summon any Sunseed monster from the deck, provided you have a Sunavalon Link monster on field already, but because you have the Link 1, obviously you already do. The main one that you're summoning being your 1 Sunseed Twin. When this guy's normal or special summoned while you have a Sunavalon Link monster, you can summon the vanilla from grave. So off of your 1 vanilla, you get a Link 1, this guy, and summoning back Loci. Not to mention, Sowing also makes you take 1,000 damage, which triggers the Link 1's second effect to summon a Sunvine Link monster from the extra deck. So off of your 1 normal, you get 4 bodies. Then Sunvine Shrine, you can activate it while you have a Sunavalon Link monster by discarding 1 card, and then once per turn, you can summon the vanilla from grave. Shrine is not once per turn, or it's a soft once per turn rather. So if you have 2, you can use 2, provided you discard twice. And it also has a secondary effect, where during your opponent's end phase, you can send it to the grave and then target a continuous trap in your graveyard and set it to your side of the field. It doesn't come up very frequently, but the Sunavalons do have a continuous trap, so it's worth knowing that you can do that. Sowing additionally has a grave effect, where if your plant Link monster would be destroyed by battle or card effects, you can banish Sowing from grave instead. Then you have a whole bunch of random one-of plant monsters that are all accessible off of things like Lone Fire Blossom or Aromatherapy Jasmine, starting out with Mardell. On normal or special, this adds any plant or any generator card from deck to hand. You're mainly adding Aromage Laurel, which if your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can summon Laurel from hand, and then when Laurel is sent to the graveyard, you gain 500 life points. So it's a free extender, and gaining 500 life points actually matters with some of the cards in the extra deck. It triggers some of their effects. Then you run Aromatherapy Angelica. Angelica has a hand trap-like effect, where you can discard her and then target an Aroma monster in your graveyard and then gain life points equal to that monster's attack. And that is a quick effect. And then while it's in grave, your life points are higher than your opponent's, and you control an Aroma monster, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You can summon her from the grave, and then she's banished when she leaves the field. Then you have Spore and World Carrot Weight Champion. Both of these are summonable from grave. Spore once per duel by banishing another plant monster in your grave, and then Spore gains the level of what it banished. You're generally banishing Laurel to make it a level 2. And then Carrot Weight Champion, you can summon by sending a plant from the field or hand to the grave. The main combo, you discard Spore from your hand. Then you have Snowdrop the Rika Fairy, Mudan the Rika Fairy, and Rose Girl. The Rikas can summon themselves from hand by tributing another plant monster. Snowdrop, when it does that, can also summon any other plant from hand, and in fact it has to. Then Snowdrop has an effect where it can target any plant on the field and make all plant monsters on field that level. So you can target itself and make it a rank 8, or so that you can overlay for a rank 8, or you can target something like Rose Girl, so they're both level 3, and then you can synchro with it. Then Mudan adds a Rika spell or trap on summon. For the purposes of this list, we only run the trap card. And then Rose Girl, if a plant is sent from field to grave, you can summon her from hand. It triggers kind of like Gazelle. And then if it's in grave and all monsters you control are plants, you can add her back to hand from the grave. So it's a really free discard for Shrine. And then it being a tuner actually matters. Then the last real monster in the deck is 3 Parallel Exceed. This helps you chain block your Link 1, and it helps you make one of the Rika rank 4s, which helps you play either around or through Nibiru, which is a really big problem for this deck. So I like it for now. I'm not sure if it stays long term though. Then for the trap cards, we have Sunavalon Bloom, Blessed Winds, and Rika's Sheet. I already discussed that this is searchable off Mudan, but this is searchable off the Sunavalon Link 4, and this is searchable off of the Synchro that I'll get to. Then Bloom, it kind of has like a Dark Ruler effect, where if you control a Link 4 plant monster, you can activate it, and then all monsters your opponent currently controls are negated permanently. And then its second effect is if your plant Link monster battles, you can have that Link monster gain attack equal to everything that it points to. So it can work as a defensive card if they try to attack one of your monsters, but also it helps offensively because you can make some of your Sunavalon Link monsters really, really big. And Blessed Winds has 3 effects. The first one is seldom used, but you can send a plant from hand or field to grave to gain 500 life points. You can use it to dodge like a Veiler on your Link 1, for example. But the second one, you can target a plant in grave and shuffle it in the deck and gain 500. So it gives you a little bit of a grind game, and the gaining 500 again helps you trigger some of your plant monsters in your extra deck. Then the third effect, you can pay 1,000 and then summon an aroma monster from your graveyard, which is just generically really good. And being a continuous trap, you can just do that every turn. Rika's Sheet, I like to call it a fake Widow Anchor. When you activate it, you can target an opponent's monster, and that monster can't activate its effects. It's not negated, so if they have something that triggers on normal summon, it's not good versus that. But if they go like normal Phantom Knight's Torn Scales, you can target that, and then it can't activate its effects. Or if you tribute a plant monster, you can instead take the monster for the turn. So there you go. Then for the rest of the main deck, we have 3 Gamma, Driver, and 3 Imperm. I think these are just the best generic hand traps right now. Gamma specifically being good because it negates and destroys, and we don't really know what's going to be played yet, and I think Gamma just generically hits every deck, and it hits them like hard. And Imperm, same thing, but it's also strictly better than Veiler because you can draw into it as your 6th card and use it as negation that way. Moving on to the extra deck, we have Aroma Seraphy Sweet Marjoram, which is a level 6 synchro, which you'd think would be hard to make, but you can make it with Spore Carrot Weight, Snowdrop Rose Girl, or my favorite, Lone Fire Rose Girl. And on summon, she adds Blessed Winds, or a couple other cards that we don't run. But if you gain life points, she has an effect where you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. It is mandatory, so if they upstart you first action, she still triggers, even though on resolution your opponent won't have any cards. So that's worth noting. And she has a continuous effect. While your life points are higher than your opponent can't target plant monsters you have with card effects. For XYZs, we have Rika Queen Strenna and Teardrop the Rika Queen. You make Strenna basically exclusively with Xseed, but in theory you can make it with Snowdrop Carrot Weight. But it has an effect where you can detach one and then add a plant from grave to hand. And then if it's tributed from something like Jasmine or another Rika monster or Nibiru, it can summon a rank 5 or higher plant XYZ monster. So the one we run is Teardrop. You can also just hard make this with Snowdrop using its effects. And Teardrop has a quick effect where you can detach one and target a monster on the field. It can be your field, and tribute it. And it's a quick effect if you have a plant monster as material. And then if a monster is tributed, this monster gains 200 attack points for the turn. So it can get decently big. And it's just good interruption in general. Moving on to the Link monsters, we have 3 Sunavalon Dryas. This is by far just the best one. If you make it with the vanilla, you can add any Sunvine spell trap from deck to hand. And then if you take damage, either through battle or effect damage, you can gain that damage back and then summon a Sunvine Link monster from your extra deck. So the 2 that we run are Healer and Thrasher. Healer has an effect on summon that you can target a Link monster and then gain life points equal to 300 times the Link rating of that monster. So most of the time it's pointing to Dryas, so you'll gain 300. But that's enough because it makes your life points higher than your opponent's, which turns on a lot of your Aroma monsters. And then Thrasher on summon, you can target a Sunavalon Link monster, and it gains 800 attack points times the Link rating of that monster. So if you target a Link 4, Thrasher gets up to 4,000 attack points, which is just a lot. It gets over most cards in the game. And then if it kills a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can summon the monster you destroyed to a zone that a Link monster points to. Both of these cards die if a Sunavalon monster leaves the field, so keep that in mind. But most of the time, that doesn't matter. And Dryas has a continuous effect where your opponent can't attack it, but they can attack you directly if it's the only thing on field. All of the Sunavalons have that. The Sunvines do not. Then you have 3 Aromatherapy Jasmine. This card is absolutely bananas. Any type of monster would kill to have something like this. She has 3 effects. The first one, if your life points are higher than your opponent, this card and any plants that it points to can't be destroyed by battle, which is fair enough. But the main effect is that you can tribute a monster that she points to and then summon any plant from deck in defense position. Keep in mind you can summon Lone Fire and then use Lone Fire to summon something else. So you can summon anything in attack essentially that way. But she has a second effect is where if you gain life points, you can add a plant monster from deck to hand. And naturally, soft once per turn. So if you happen to have 2 Jasmines and gain life points through something like Laurel, you get a double search, which is generally what happens. You'll go Jasmine, tribute something, add Mardell, add Laurel, summon Laurel, make Laurel and Mardell into the Jasmine, which triggers the Laurel, which gives you 2 searches. You run 3 though, because it gives you a better grind game, and it's just one of those cards that I feel like you should max out on while it is legal. Then 2 Sunavalon Melius. This has an effect on Link Summon, where you can summon the vanilla from grave. And again, soft once per turn, so if you make 2, you can use it twice. And then its second effect is if you have a Sunvine Link monster on the field, you can target it, and then it can attack a number of times equal to the number of Sunavalon Link monsters that you have on field, which is generally going to be 2. You can make it 3 if you really try, but it makes Thrasher just game in a lot of instances. So this card is very, very good. Then the last 2 monsters are Sunavalon Dryad Trentier and Banghill the Resurgent. Note, you have to make this with Link monsters, but any deck that has Link 1s, that's not too hard to come by. On summon, this adds Sunavalon Bloom, and then it can't be a target for attacks, just like Dryas and Melius, but Dryad Trentier also can't be destroyed by card effects. And then it has an ignition effect where you can tribute a Link monster that it points to, and then destroy cards your opponent controls up to the Link rating of that monster. So if your field is this, you can tribute this, and then destroy 4 cards because it's a Link 4. Then Bangle Lancer has 2 effects. It's like a compulse. During the main phase quick effect, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls and return it to hand and then take effect damage equal to that monster's attack. Keep in mind, if you target something with 0 attack, well, you can't because you don't actually take effect damage and you are required to take the effect damage to return it to hand. So that comes up with specifically the Mirror and specifically Tri-Brigade Nerval. And its second effect is you can summon it from the graveyard by banishing essentially the link materials that you used it with. So if you have a link 3 and a link 1 in grave, you can banish those, that equals 4, and summon it from grave. You can only use one effect or the other per turn. But if they Nibiru you on this card, you can just summon it back, essentially. And they can't just kill it because you have Sowing in grave most of the time, which will protect it from battle. Moving on to the side deck. This is, again, personal preference, and it's the beginning of the format. Who knows what people will actually be playing. But there's a couple of important cards that I wanted to show off. The first just being Nibiru. It's just another hand trap. There's a lot of Phantom Knights in my area, and this is just one of the most efficient cards at dealing with them. But then you have Har and Boss Stage. A lot of my losses are to Lightning Storm and Evenly Matched and like Mystic Mine and all of those silly cards in like sided games. So I needed a way to have just effect negation. Well, not even effect negation, just an Omni negate. And this is just the only thing that plants have access to. And Boss Stage, of course, is searchable off of Mardell. You could run the rank 9 Sacred Tree guy, but it's really hard to get both a spell and a trap under him, so I thought that Boss Stage was a lot better for that purpose. And then I also side Verte Anaconda, Dragostapelia, and Super Poly. Of course, Sunvine, Sowing, and Shrine both lock you in extra deck plant monsters, so you can't just like main this, main DPE kind of thing. But something like DPE and Dragoon are issues for this deck, so I wanted a consistent way of dealing with those cards. So Dragostapelia and Verte Anaconda both being Predaplants, naturally they're plant monsters. This just gives you an easy out to a card like that using Super Poly, specifically Dragoon, because everyone in my locals just like still plays that card for some reason. Then 3 Twin Twisters and the Harpy's Feather Duster. Skill Drain is at 3. Yeah. Plus you need to side out Gamma versus back row decks, so you have 4 cards to do it that way. But I think Twin is just the best mass removal card. I don't really like Lightning Storm because you can't draw into it later in the game, where you can with Twin Twisters. Plus Twin Twisters is a lot better going first, because you can set it and then pop 2 before they can use them. And then lastly, you have 3 Rivalry of Warlords. This card's just very good in a plant deck. It just doesn't conflict with anything other than Xseed, but you can just side out Xseed in sided games. So this card's very, very good. And if they clear it, you can set it back with Sunvine Shrine. So that's the deck profile. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about it, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to answer everything. Otherwise, thank you. Have a great day, and goodbye.